We start. Well, welcome everyone. My name is Monica Burns. I'm excited to have you join today for a special webinar. I love this topic of collaboration with book creator on the web that we're going to focus on today. So as you heard me mention, I'm recording this webinar, and I think sometimes Zoom announces that to you too. I never know quite how that works, but you are going to be with us today for the collaboration webinar. And so I'm hoping that if you've joined me or you've joined John or someone else from Book Creator over the past couple weeks, that you are ready today to get as interactive as we can with Book Creator today. And hopefully you'll play along. So during our webinar, there is the chat box, which you can put in any messages that you have. That way, John and I will see it. You also have the option, of course, to just kind of share, say hello right there in that Zoom webinar chat box. There's also the Q&A area. So if you have a direct question, you want to place it in there, that's quite all right too. I'm here today, but John is also here and will be in the chat answering questions in case I missed something or something like that too. And yep, if you want to use that drop down instead of to all panelists, and say it to everyone, especially if you have something fun to share or a great link to a resource or something that you love and you know other educators would appreciate, that's a great place to share it too. So I am going to go full screen here and we will jump in. So our topic tonight is collaboration with book creator on the web. And I am so excited that you're here to join us for this webinar. The idea of collaboration is so important, super doable within Book Creator, and I'm hoping you'll get some hands-on experience and kind of build up your confidence with that as we talk and chat and try things out together today. If we haven't met before, my name is Monica Burns. I am a book creator ambassador. I'm a former New York City public school teacher. I am an ed tech and curriculum consultant, and you might have seen my website, classtechtips.com. And I know I sent out an Instagram story snap before we jumped on tonight with a reminder about today's webinar. I love tweeting and posting on Instagram and connecting with folks in social spaces. And this, I think, is number 5 for me on the list of Wednesday webinars I've been hosting for the folks at Book Creator, and really excited that you are joining together today. Now, I know I gave some shout outs to some folks who shared where they're from. You're welcome to use that area. Folks from North Carolina and from California and from Texas and Georgia and Alaska and Ohio and Oregon and so many different places, Canada, all over the place. So thank you so much. And that is just so glad, to have you here today. So we are going to do a quick overview of Book Creator just to give you a setting the stage of what it is if you're new to it. But if you're a pro, don't worry, we'll move quickly through that quick overview. And then we're going to talk about the importance of collaboration, collaborative models, and we'll get into some real-time collaboration with Book Creator. We'll talk about some collaborative project ideas, and we will save time for Q&A. But please don't be shy. If you have a question in the midst of what we're talking about, if there's a clarifying question or something like that, please make sure to just reach out and put that in the Q&A area or in the chat box, and we'll get to it for sure. Now, I'd love to just hear from you quickly in that chat area. How familiar are you with Book Creator? Are you totally new to it? Maybe you heard collaboration and that's what got you excited. Have you been joining John and the Book Creator team and maybe me on Wednesdays for Book Creator webinars? So you're pretty familiar with it. Maybe you've used it side by side in classrooms with students like I have. So where are you on that? Totally new, I heard it, I'm excited, or I've used it all the time. So awesome. So I see folks who are new to it, just starting out, maybe came to a webinar yesterday. Awesome. Some folks who've used it a lot and share it all the time, have used it with kids before. So great. I love that we are all over the place today because it really gives you a chance to connect in that chat area, maybe share something, ask a question that someone else might have, or if you have a link to something you've made, right, you're welcome to share it there too. So today we are going to talk about remote learning resources, as well as this big idea of collaboration. And you'll hear me make these remote learning connections specifically as we go through today. We are in the midst of a public health crisis. Schools all over the world are closed, and many are remaining closed for the rest of this current school year. And of course, if you're watching this on demand on the YouTube replay, you may also be someone who has remote learning in mind. So a couple things I'll call out to just to get us started. There's an awesome ebook resource full of activity ideas that are just ready to go and that are great for learning at home. So there's a lot of ebook resources, but specifically the big activity book from Book Creator is really fantastic. The collaboration feature, the one we're going to talk about, and I'm going to have you hopefully participate in with me today, is something that is normally a paid or small short trial feature, but now you can use the collaboration feature for 90 days. So it's an awesome thing to try out right away, especially if you are doing this in a remote learning environment. And you'll hear me talk about that today. Book Creator's hosting lots of webinars, like I mentioned, and we're going to talk about a remote learning specific workflow that you may want to think about as well. So some of you said that you were totally new to Book Creator. We're not going to do a full getting started today. So if there's any point that I move a little fast and you're thinking, Monica, wait, where'd you find that button? Or where was that? Please know that one, this webinar is being recorded and we'll have it up and available for you so you can access it whenever you want. The folks at Book Creator do such a great job of a quick turnaround with having these up on their YouTube channel. So you'll be able to access it right away, the recording. And John and the Book Creator team are hosting a bunch of webinars that are great if you're a total newbie also. So there's that resource. So I just want to make sure you feel good going into today, that there's going to be plenty of resources for you to circle back to if anything feels a little quick in terms of you're kind of getting familiar with Book Creator. So Book Creator is an open-ended creation tool for iOS, Chrome, and on any web browser. You'll see me on my Chrome web browser on my MacBook today. Students and teachers can create and publish books. There's super simple features to help you make something interactive. So there's voice, text, video, images, and more, and we're going to play around with that together today. And students of all ages can use Book Creator. I've used it side by side with elementary school students all the way up to adult learners, and there's just so many things you can do with this powerful tool. Now, today you'll hear me mention this and take you through this workflow because it's super important when we talk about collaboration, how teachers can create libraries for students and they can invite them into that library to collaborate and make books. So open-ended, students and teachers can make things. Your interactive pages can have all sorts of media on it. Students of all ages can use Book Creator, and teachers can create libraries for students, which will be necessary for our collaboration piece today. Now, we're going to talk about collaborative books and kind of create something pretty broad today, but you're going to make sure that whatever you do with your kiddos is really focused in on your learning goals, of course, right? So digital portfolios, poetry books, step-by-step guides, science reports, learning journals, comics, you name it, all of that counts in the sort of things that you can make with Book Creator. Now, because we are talking about Book Creator in the midst of remote learning taking place right now, one thing to keep in mind, and we'll talk about this workflow as we go through, is that you will want to set up a teacher account. You will then want to share with your kids and families. This is the way you log in if Book Creator is new to them. And you'll have the ability to peek in and see student books in real time. And that's with or without collaboration, but with what we're talking about today for sure. Now, I want to make sure, we note about access and priorities and what's, going on with everyone. You, of course, know this already with the work that you are doing. Your kids are in all different sorts of spaces and places in terms of access, not just to an actual computer, right, or device, but also for wireless connectivity, right? Their family might have certain health and economic priorities right now. So I say this because I know that you're in a space and acknowledge just what I'm kind of thinking about too, right? Of course, that this idea that families may not have the same priorities and different pieces. We want to talk today about sharing ideas and suggestions that might feel good as opposed to set expectations or something that might not feel so great for families. So just mentioning that as part of the context of this conversation. So when we're talking about Book Creator today, and I'm going to encourage you to go through the same workflow with me, you are going to sign in at app.bookcreator.com. So this is something where shortly I'm going to sign in, I'm going to create a library, I'm going to invite you in, and we're going to collaborate on some books together. That's the goal of what we're going to do today. And so within Book Creator, you can sign in as a teacher, and then your kids will sign in as students. You will create a library like this one. You will then invite kids into a library using that invite code, and they can come in and join. So I want you to watch me as I set up a new library, because I'm going to get a code and get ready to invite you into that library. And you may want to go through the same process as me as I'm doing this. So I am already logged in. So I'm already at app.bookcreator.com. I just want to show you in an incognito window what this looks like. So if I hadn't logged in yet, and you might be in this spot too, you will, and I'm going to just grab this and paste it into our Zoom chat here so that you get it in case you need it there. You will switch from student view to teacher view. And I typically sign in with Google, but you can sign in with whatever works for you. Your students will then sign in with Google, Office 365, a QR code, or sign in with Clever. So this is the screen that you might see, but remember, toggle over to teacher before you create an account. Now you can be logged in as a teacher to join in on collaboration with us today, and I'll show you what that looks like. It'll be a little bit different for students. So I've already logged in. If you're logging in for the first time, you will be prompted to create a library for the first time. I've got a bunch of libraries in here that I've already created, but I'm going to create a new library for us. I've already got my April 2020 library from my earlier webinars, but I'm going to put in today's date, April 29th, 2020, and I'm just going to put a collaboration note because we're going to be collaborating together today. Now, I'm going to invite you into this library shortly. I will allow you to do Google image search. I will allow you to edit your own books. I'm going to allow you to read each other's books if that's okay with you. And I'll keep that students can publish their books online off for now. So I'm going to go ahead and go to create library. Now, remember, we're talking about collaboration on the web today. So I'm here on my web browser for that. So I'm going to now open up this library, and soon I'm going to give you this invite code and invite you in. But essentially, I logged in, I went into my library, I created a new library just for us for today, and then I opened it up, and there's nothing in there just yet, but that's okay. So you saw me set up that new library. If you are new to Book Creator, I encourage you to sign in and create a new account, because I will encourage you to participate with us today. If you're like me and sometimes you're emptying the dishwasher or folding laundry while you're watching a webinar and you just want to sit back and watch and listen, totally fine. Do what works best for you. But I'm hoping that will get some folks who do want to jump in so you can see what collaboration looks like in action. So I'll give you the code in just a moment. Yep, you can use your laptop and all of that, but if you want to sign into Book Creator and get that process started, that's a great way. I'll invite you in just a moment. So when we're talking about collaboration in the classroom, I have a book called Tasks Before Apps and a whole chapter in the book on collaboration. And so today we're talking more about remote collaboration with a special feature in Book Creator. There's also shared screen where kids are leaning over and talking about what they're doing together, which is awesome. And you could totally do that in Book Creator. I was with a group of fourth graders not that long ago, and this is something where You can have the kids sit side by side. They can talk about what they're doing, and it's a really magical experience to do that. We were doing that with Book Creator in this fourth grade classroom. Role-based collaboration. This is where you might have your kids all working on different projects, some of them maybe in the same kind of ecosystem or app, maybe at home, maybe in the classroom, but we're going to talk more about remote collaboration today. This is where students will work on individual devices, just like you will be the students or participants in this library that I'm creating for you, to create a single shared creation. And that's what we're going to look at today. So if you already have some ways that your students work together to show what they know, I'd love for you to share it there in the chat area. If you have like a favorite collaborative activity, you can share it there. And thanks, Debbie, for that Task Before Apps shout out. Appreciate that. But if your students work together already to show what they know, I'd love to hear from you. Some ways that your kids do this already. Where are some spaces that they are collaborating or working together? Maybe when you are in your traditional side-by-side classroom, or maybe even right now in this remote learning environment. I'd love to hear a little bit from you. And yes, it is okay if you're logged in with a teacher, you can still collaborate. I'll show you how that works in just a second. That's definitely something that you can do too. So yeah, if you have some ways that you love to have kids work together to show what they know, I'll give some shout outs in the chat. And so that's something where you can have kids make their own books and kind of talk about different things that they've done. So lots of things they can do. And so on the Book Creator blog, and the Book Creator folks have an awesome blog with lots of great ideas, there are some ones that talk a little bit about collaboration and what it looks like to have kids working together. Mira Campbell has an awesome blog spotlight all about hosting a modern book tasting. Beth Holland talks about collaboration in her blog post all about the 6 C's of education. Jason Sand has an awesome story about elementary and high school students working together within Book Creator. So there is just so much that you can do. So real-time collaboration, right? That is a 14-day trial typically, but now it's extended for that 90-day period. So that's something important to be mindful of now, that you can just don't worry about that being super time sensitive. You'll be able to use it for a while, and it is only available on the web. That's why you're seeing me today on my Chromebook, on my Mac, or I should say my Chrome web browser on my MacBook, taking you through. Now, there are other ways to do collaboration besides the way we're going to focus on today. There's combining books, which I talked about last week in last Wednesday's webinar. You could have kids share their screen side by side. You could have them brainstorm together or provide feedback to one another, right? So there's lots of things that they can do already kind of within this space. And so we're going to go through this process. You saw me start it already. Teachers create their shared library. Students can share their work, teachers can review student progress, and they can give feedback in real time. So you are already sharing with me some ways that you might use some real-time collaboration in the classroom. Some of you talked about stories that kids wrote or making their own books. And so I'm really excited to take you out now to show you what it looks like. So I'm already signed in, right? You saw me switch from student view to teacher view. I'm in my library area. You saw me create a new library, and this is where I'm going to jump back over to my live demo here for you. So I created this library, and I'm going to give you this invite code. So I'm going to grab it right here, copy it, and I'm going to paste it into the chat area. So even though I'm gonna, thanks John, I'm gonna change my screen for just a moment, but I wanna show you I got it from up here, and this is the code. Now, if you're already logged in like a teacher, right? You're gonna come down here and you're going to join a library. So this is where not your library, so not create a new library, but the shared with me section. to join a library and put in the code there. So that's how you will join into this new library. Your kids could join a library like this when they're already logged in, and that's the way they can jump into libraries too. So I'm going to go back over here. Oh, look at this. There's 13 authors already. So that means a whole bunch of us are in here. Now I can go to this drop-down menu and I can see who's in this library already. Lots of fun, familiar faces. So that's awesome. Now, you could start making books, but I'm going to do something different with you today. I am going to go to new book here. I'm going to go to landscape because I like it because it fills up the whole screen. I'm going to go to the plus sign and I'm going to add some text and I'm just going to say, our collaborative book of favorite places. And the code is still there in the chat area. So if you scroll up to the top, you'll get that. It'll be right there waiting for you. And I'll show you how I got it again. Now I'm going to worry about making this fancier a little bit later. But what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go down here and I'm just going to go and make a bunch of pages. Now I could, if I go back up here, see I've got my 2 blank ones, just copy them, but I'm going to go into this page 2 and I'm going to give you kind of like a template to think about. So I'm going to say up here, name your place. We'll put that up here at the top. And then I'm going to put an instruction for you and I'm going to say add pictures, narration, anything you want about your favorite place. And so the goal here, and I'm not worried about making these fancy because I'm going to go up here to pages. I'm going to take this one with these instructions and I'm going to copy and just keep adding a whole bunch of these. Now, last time I looked, there were about 13 of you, right, who are in here already, but we've got about 40 folks on the webinar. So I'm just gonna make a whole bunch of these. And that way, when I invite you into the library in a moment, you are gonna choose any page. Now, maybe don't start with number 2 because everyone's gonna wanna start with the first one, right? But go ahead and jump in here and you will choose a page. You will replace the name of your favorite place, and you can even delete this and just start adding things to your page. So how does that work? Well, I'm back here. Let's see, we've got a whole bunch of folks in the library already. These are for folks who are joining us live today, right? I'm gonna go down to the share button and I am going to turn on collaboration. So now everyone in this library will have access to the book and can edit it at the same time. And I can turn off collaboration if I want to later on, which is really great for anytime you've got a lot of people in at the same time. So here we go. I'm going to start collaboration. Now you should be able to hit edit and open up this book. And I see you, all of you, starting to pop up at the bottom of the screen here. There's Cheryl and Debbie. Awesome. You're going to want to hit the pages button at the top and you're going to choose one of these pages. I don't care which one you choose, right? Go ahead and choose whichever one you want. I'm going to make some more copies just in case more folks jump in. I would love for you to now make this page your own. So what does that mean? So let's say I choose page number 4. Maybe this is going to be me. And I'm going to change this and I'm going to say my favorite place is the Badlands, like Badlands National Park. And even though Peggy's in here, Peggy could jump in and start putting things about the Badlands too if she wanted to, right? So you can do this however you want. I'm not giving you super duper structure, right? Because I want us to play around today. So I can go ahead and I can do all the things I normally would, right? So I would maybe click here, change the color or the font. Maybe I would change the background to be something a little earthy because I'm talking about the Badlands, or maybe I'll choose a border that kind of goes along with this here. Awesome. Now let's take a peek. You guys can choose whichever page you want to and start making some changes. And you can put the name of your favorite place if you want to play along for this. So you can choose any page you want. I see that some of you are already in here making changes. Now, I'm being pretty loose with my structure here, right? If I was with a group of 4th graders, I would give them all a number and we would count off and we would all know which our page was. Could they still go in there and get into someone else's page? Totally, but this is where our digital citizenship components come in, right? So let's see, who else changed the background of their page? If you click on yours, remember you go to the inspector button, you can change the background, and I can peek, right? And I know there's someone on these pages because there's a little person right there. So when I click to open it up, I can see Carol's in here. I love Banff in Alberta. It's so gorgeous, right? What a fun place. I get what you mean, Carmen, right? I need you to treat me like a fourth grader. I joke about The Office. There's a funny episode of The Office where Michael Scott says, explain it to me like, a 10-year-old. He goes, explain it to me like a 5-year-old, right? Keep on bringing it down. Or I'm butchering the quote, but it's something I laugh about a lot. And so if I go in here, right, I can see where folks are hanging out. If you were sitting side by side with someone and you each had your own device, you would be in this like a Google Doc, right? And you could work on this at the same time. So this is a great way to get kids working together. Look at this awesome one. What an awesome spot. Great, Stacy. All right, so I can see who's working. Now I'm not touching anything. I'm putting my hands up here to show you, right? And the changes are happening on the screen because the collaboration is happening. So I can go back out here, and this is happening in real time, right? So I can see what people are adding and everything on each of their pages. And if I see that there are people on a page, I know I'm going to want to go in and check that one out to see what they've put there. So if you want to type on the page, you would use the plus sign, and this is how you start adding your stuff. So remember before when I was mentioning about like the fact that we are kind of at a level 2 for this webinar. So if you're totally new for Book Reader, please try not to stress too much because I know I'm moving a little bit quickly. If you want to see your pages, so say you're right here and you only see the cover, click to open it up and you still see my cover, right? And it's cool if you're in here and putting pictures on it. I'm all for that, right? You can go to pages, and this is where you see all the pages. It kind of reminds me like a PowerPoint presentation, right? Like I can see all the slides at once this way, kind of like how I could do that in my keynote right now if I wanted to, right? I see all the slides, or I could go into this light table view and see all the slides this way. So you kind of have that same sort of feel to it as well, right? So all of those are things that I'm gonna get back in my right view here for us. So awesome. So look at what's happening so far in our group and our class. You can jump in here. You can choose the page that's right for you. And if I'm like, you know what, no one ever did anything on page 19, I can always click it and delete it, right? Or if maybe I said to you, we're going to do, awesome, John, look at this one. We're going to do like an ABC book. I could rearrange your pages by dragging them around in different positions. Now, there's a funny book creator story that I have to tell because it always makes me laugh. And maybe John has a update for this, but this must have been about 2 Octobers ago. I want to say 2 or 3 falls ago. I was going to the ed tech teacher, one of their summits in Boston, and I was going to show off. I did do this, but I was planning right at the time to show off Book Creator to the group. And I knew it was going to be a pretty big group. And I said to Dan from Book Creator, I said, is there a limit to how many people can collaborate at one time? Like, are we going to hit a limit here? And I think his exact response was, just let me know, right? if you do hit that wall, and there is a limit, right? And I got about 75 people in this room, and it was a big kind of messy book like this one, right? A lot of movement happening at one spot, but everyone kind of understood their goal, their place, their space, and that's how they did it. So to see all of the pages, you would click the pages view up here at the top. If you're back here, you can scroll through and use the arrow button and move around. Now, as I mentioned, I'm moving a little fast today in terms of all the things you can add to your page, right? So look at all this. This looks fantastic. And so as you are going through, it may be useful for you to peek at some other pages and see what other people have added. That way you get a feel for it. So that's something that you might want to kind of consider, right? So here's mine here. I did put this little prompt, but I'm actually going to hit my delete button and get rid of that. I can go to the plus sign. I can add pictures onto my page. Maybe I add a maps of Badlands National Park in South Dakota. So I love the satellite view where you get all the good look stuff there. We'll hit select and I can add this onto my page here, right? So you now have the freedom to do kind of all the things and kind of get a feel for all this. So this is really just something where you're kind of playing around. If you want to advance slide by slide or page by page, excuse me, you would hit this arrow button and you could start looking to see what everyone looked at. Look at all these places to dream about, like Galveston, Hilton Head, or just mentioned Lake Michigan. And I want to point out to you some things you might see. Right, here's a link, so you could put the link on the page. So one of the things that I love the most about doing this live webinar with you all is that you get a chance to see what other people are up to, right? What other people are adding to their pages. So you can see the combination of images, the different things that they put in here, maybe uploading their own photos or searching for photos. So it's really fantastic. And I love so many of us, especially because we're talking about places today, but I just love how we're all using different maps. I think that's just so fantastic, right? So look at all these awesome spots to dream about, right? And think about. So this is wonderful. So please keep working in here, right? Have a good time. Take a peek at what everyone else is up to. I'm going to go back into the slide deck to show you some things to consider, some project ideas now that you know how collaboration works, but I'm sure your wheels are spinning. So please, please use that chat area if you have anything that you want to share that comes to mind. So when we talk about collaborative ebooks, you might have students recap moments from a field trip. So they all share in one page their favorite part of a field trip. They might do some recommendations for books that they love. They might not have everyone in their class. Like if the idea of having 30 kiddos in one book is kind of freaking you out a little bit, right? You might just have 3 or 4 kids working together. So maybe it's a small group research report. You might have kids do a whole class reflection. This is a you name it situation, right? You have the power to make some decisions and decide how you want kids to interact in this space. Now, with whole group collaboration, which is what we are doing today, every student has their own page. Students can locate or upload images, which you all are doing and playing around with. Each child adds their voice or text to their page, which I'm going to show you in just a moment. And they can peek at the page of a partner to give feedback. So that's something that you can consider too. So let's jump out and take a look at kind of both of these pieces. Let me pop out here and we'll come back to this the small group in just a moment. So I'm going to jump back out here to pages. I'm going to take a look and see everything that you've all created, right? So I could go back to my page here in the Badlands and I might go to the plus sign, and instead of typing in a whole story to you about the trip that I took to the Badlands, I might go first to the text box and use voice to text. So I'm going to go ahead and add my piece here, and I'm going to tell my little Badlands story. A few years ago, I went to the Badlands and it was amazing. I highly recommend you adding this to a summer trip list. I also have a funny story about the celebrity I almost bumped into at the airport on my way to this special trip. So you can see it grabbed my text pretty well here. Now, I might put in some periods or some commas, right? A few years ago, I went to the Badlands and it was amazing. I might sneak in a period there. I highly recommend you adding this to this year summer trip list. I might add an exclamation point there. And put that here. And if you're wondering who the celebrity I ran into at the airport, well, it was Bill Murray, who was right in front of me online at the Minneapolis airport on my way to Rapid City, South Dakota, which is where I started my Badlands trip. So one of my favorite airport stories. It was the very first time that I did a Facebook Live because I was just so excited on my way to this special trip to have such a funny airport story. So I put in the text right there using voice to text. Now, if I am thinking less from a student creation point of view and more from a teacher giving feedback perspective, I might go here, and John made a really great point, a good reminder. These are not always going to be as fast with the update in real time. You have to click on individual pages if you want to really see the real time movement, but it's going to give you a nice quick view here. So I'm going to go ahead over to John's page. He put a map, right? He has his images, the audio. Now, one really great thing you can do that's wonderful in a collaborative environment where everyone can kind of see each other's pages is you can encourage kids to leave feedback on each other's pages. Now, this is not something I would just do in the same sort of leave feedback on a friend's page prompt that I'm kind of alluding to right now. I would set kids up for success by giving them lots of examples, talking to them about best practices for feedback, modeling by giving them feedback a bunch of times in this space so they get a sense of what it looks like, right? So I want to preface that here, but I'm going to give John some feedback by just really asking him a question. And so I'm going to go ahead to the record button, and I can leave this, go ahead and press the start recording button. John, thank you so much for sharing this golf club. I wonder if the weather here is as bright and wonderful every day of the year as it is in your picture. So I can go ahead and leave that note right on his page. Now, I left kind of a general I wonder type of spot, and John already got back to me in the chat there with it is not as bright and sunny right all year long there. But this is something where you might give some constructive feedback. You might say that's something that you suggest that they add onto the page, right? So this is something that you can do all the time for kids because as a teacher, you can peek into their books, right, in the library, and that's something that you can do all the time. But in a collaborative environment, you might encourage kids to leave those little voice pieces, those voice feedback on each other's page. Now, especially if the feedback they give is an action item, like this is something you might want to consider, or have you thought about adding a border, or whatever it might be, the kids can listen to it, and then they can delete that if they wanted to, right? Or move it to another spot or something like that. So that's something that you can do too. And John is all about the collaboration today. So let's go ahead and peek back up to see, right? So if I jump on here, and there's Bill Murray right there on the page, right? So you can really do something right there. Thanks, Peggy, for your note, right? You can add a little text box or talk box or thought bubble on the page too. So if you are totally new to Book Creator and you haven't seen some of these other features, I do want to point them out to you. You saw me use the import button to grab the map, and lots of other people were map happy today. But you could also search for images. So I could put an image of the Badlands or Bill Murray right in there, right? I can go to my files and I can add something from my computer if I have a picture. So I'm going to go, and add a picture if I want to add a picture. I can go to Drive and connect to my Drive, or I can embed, which I saw some of you do, right? Adding in an embed here. So this is something that you can do too. There's a lot of options. I can also go to the pen tool or the camera tool. So you can see me right now on Zoom, right? So if I put on the camera, you can see what my real background looks like behind me, right? I'm not in a gorgeous library today, but you can see my office there. You can add your Bitmojis on the page. Awesome, Debbie. And so you saw me play with some of those pieces. I can also use the pen tool. This is where the emojis are. So you might have kids leave emoji feedback on a friend's page and place it right there. And these are not anonymous, right? So I can see who's working where at one time. I can see everyone down at the bottom right-hand side. So that's there too. Now, in addition to these pieces, right, you saw me use the record button. I can also go to the inspector button, change the background. Anytime I've clicked on an element, I can go to the inspector button. If I want to hyperlink that emoji to go somewhere, I could do that too. Or if I go to the plus sign and I haven't clicked on anything, I want to add something more, I can go to shapes and add in some shapes right here. So lots of great stuff. And we'll come back out here to the full view. And as I mentioned, if I looked at these and thought they were awesome, but now I want to put them in alphabetical order, right? I could move these around so they're in a different order. I could delete some of the pages nobody ended up working on, right? So you have a lot of options here when it comes to setting up kids for success. And this is something that you can really set some structure, some routines. Here, I kind of gave you a real general prompt and you all ran with it and did amazing things, but I might put a first page, kind of like a table of contents with a checklist as a reminder that kids could go back and look at. So all things to consider. So for the whole group collaboration, every kid can have their own page or maybe more than one page, just depends on the structure of your project. Students can locate or upload images, use their voice or text on their page or a friend's page, right? And peek at that partner page as well. Now, if you're doing this with kids in a small group model, students can really develop a plan of action. They can know what they're in charge of, right? They might sit side by side or have their own computer to do this. And as I mentioned, right, they might offer feedback using the audio buttons, text notes, or conversations. Now, if you're doing this in a remote learning environment, you might introduce this as kind of a round two for kids. And so this is something where you would maybe already have kids in the library to make or create something, and now they're going to collaborate, right? So you would just have to make a decision about what it would look like to introduce all of this to your group. So we tried it together already, and you all are doing a fantastic job right within there. Before we finish up today, I want to make sure that I get to any collaboration questions, because this is a little bit different than something you might do in Book Creator. So if you want to share some questions, you can use that Q&A area, or you can use the webinar chat, whatever feels good. As I wait for some kind of questions to come in, and we're just gonna pop out here. So as we wait for some questions to come in, I do want to share with you some resources that may come in handy. Now, Book Creator has a Facebook group that's fantastic, Twitter chats that take place, their newsletter. They have all these free ebooks, which I'm going to take you out to in a moment. But this is something where we are scratching the surface with some project ideas today. Our focus is all about collaboration and making it happen, but you could do the same sort of thing we're talking about with kids working together remotely in a science classroom, high school classroom, reading classroom, you name it. So there are lots and lots of different things to consider. So all of that is important to note. Now, if I come back out here and I come back to my library, I might decide to turn off collaboration. That way no one else can get in here if I want to, right? So I probably will do that at the end of today's webinar. So if you're watching the recording, just know that that's kind of the process that I typically do for something like this. But I want to come back out here and show you again some things to consider. Remember, I created the new library, then kids joined the library, and that's how they jumped in. In the same library space, when we click resources, this is where you'll see all the ebooks and all the great things that the folks at Book Creator have made and have available for you. I mentioned the Facebook group, you can find it right there. And that's a really wonderful resource. Even if you're not big on posting on Facebook, it's a great thing to check out and get reminders about, because it's pretty active and people share some really great classroom strategies and ideas. So we've got a few minutes left today for our Q&A. And I want to kind of take a peek. And John, if I missed anything as I'm going through here, feel free to make sure I get to it. Carolyn asked the question, what is the best way to show younger students features and how to use it? So if you are working side by side with students and taking them through, which is something I typically do in classroom settings, I'm not in a classroom right now as a full-time teacher, but I visit lots of classrooms and do some push-in and blended learning coaching. And so what I typically do is I will show off on a big screen, or interactive screen, Promethean board, Smartboard in a classroom, 1 or 2 steps, and then have the kids repeat that step and try it out that way. But I find that once I go through a couple things, right, only, a few of them are really struggling and they have a partner right next to them who usually is a person who answers their question before I can even get to them. In a remote learning environment, if you have not introduced this before and you are working with younger students or students who need a lot of support, you might decide that you are going to do a Zoom chat like like this one, introduce it to families as a tool they may want to use. Book Creator is super intuitive, so it lends itself really well to this. The big thing you'll want to share with families is the login process. And then once they're in, you might give some tips or suggestions, but let the kids get really creative in a less structured type of thing. Michelle asked, I have the app on my mini iPads. Does this mean I will continue to have access to all this extra tools after it's not in the free mode? Well, for the collaboration piece, we're talking about collaboration on the web. So typically on a computer, although if you do have a web browser on your iPad, that can be a workaround. So the app is what it is. It's wonderful, but I like to think of it as something separate. Right? So you won't have collaboration on the app, but that won't go anywhere anyhow. So this is going to be separate, and that's going to be for on the web. So just a couple kind of things to consider there as we go through. Now, I want to make sure before we finish up that you know that there are 2 more webinars that I'm doing for the folks at Book Creator on the schedule right now. So this was number 5 of 7, and it is being recorded and will be up and ready for you on the YouTube channel pretty soon. The folks at Book Creator are in charge of that, but they are quick with the turnaround. And next Wednesday, if you're joining us, we'll have one on social studies and Book Creator project ideas, and then finishing up this series in May with favorite apps to use with Book Creator. So that's a busy webinar, lots and lots. It's like a long list of favorites and lots of examples and ideas in that one. It's also a favorite, just like this one. So thank you all so much for coming and joining today. I'll turn it over to John for any kind of last remarks or things that I might have missed.
Yeah, thank you, Monica. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Another great webinar. I always enjoy anything collaborative. And I did put a link in there to a collaborative project that I have done and I'm working on right now, the TWIMA project. So if you are looking for a collaborative project to join, the link is in the chat and you can click on that and join that project. I did want to bring up a couple of things real quick. We do have I do have a library, and I'm going to put the code in the chat right now. If you join this library, there is a certificate of achievement for participating tonight. So what you need to do is go into that library, and then you need to make a copy of the book that is labeled for tonight's collaboration 1. You're going to make a copy of that, and then once you put it into your own library, you are going to be able to edit it. So you can put your name on there, the date, and that way you can send that certificate off to your school or administrator or whoever needs to see it so that you can get some hours for credits for attending. So the code is in the chat. I'll put it in there one more time, 6P CSWLS, and that will be a great way for you to get some credits for that. And then again, the only other thing I want to mention, like Monica said, I just can't reiterate enough that the iPad app and the online version, the best way to think about it is they're just completely 2 different things. So don't even try to compare them or think of ways to make them work the way you want. They are just 2 totally different things. Like Monica said, you can use the iPad and use the browser and do the collaborative features. And that's actually how I did my page because I'm using my computer for everything else. So I did the iPad browser and I used it for collaboration. But if you think about the app completely separate from the internet version, then you're all set, and that will help you out. That's it for me, Monica.
All right,
Anything else?
great. No, that sounds good.